Hi developers, let's learn how to use Terraform to automate the creation and configuration of resources on the cloud. Terraform uses the concept of infrastructure as code, where we have files that defines the resources that should be created and the configuration for each resource. We'll be using Azure DevOps in order to automate the deployment of those files onto the cloud. So from the CI pipeline, we'll go just to put those Terraform files into the artifact so that we can access them later from the CD pipeline, where we'll be using the task for a specific task for running Terraform commands, and we'll connect to the Azure cloud or to our subscription, and then we'll run the command Terraform apply in order to apply the different changes described in the Terraform files. Let's learn how we can create the CI/CD pipelines to deploy a Terraform template using Azure DevOps. In this project, I have the template that I want to deploy, which is under the file main.tf, tf to say Terraform. This template will create a web app and also a SQL Server instance. So here I have the configuration for my app service, including the connection string. Then I have here the configuration for the SQL Server instance. In addition to that, I want to create a database. Those resources will be created inside the resource group, because in Azure, each resource should live or should be attached to a resource group. So here, first of all, we are creating the resource group. Then we are creating the app service plan, which will be used by the app service as the offer for the app service. That could be the standard offer, the basic, or the premium offer. Here we are using the standard offer. We can deploy this template using the basic Terraform commands, using the command line. So we can say Terraform init, then Terraform plan, then Terraform apply to apply those changes or this configuration into my Azure subscription. But here we want to automate this step, and we'll do that through using Azure DevOps through a CI/CD pipeline. So let's jump into Azure DevOps and let's start creating the pipeline. Before that, actually, we need to have the configuration files into source control. So here I have chosen to use GitHub. So here I'm using this public repo in GitHub, where here I have one of my projects do have here the main.tf and also the variables.tf. The variables.tf will contain the variables that I'm using for my template. That includes the app service name, the location for the resource group, and the name of my resource group. So those variables will be applied to the main.tf template when I deploy this into Azure. From Azure DevOps here, I have already an account, so I'll go to start by creating a new project, and I'll call this project Terraform CI/CD. I'll choose to have its visibility set to public, then I'll create this project. Once it's created, now I want to start by creating the pipelines. So I'll go to pipelines window, then here start by creating the build pipeline. So I'll say new pipeline, and here we have different options. So we can choose this a new way of defining templates or defining CI/CD by using the YAML configuration files. And we still can use the classic editor, which will use the designer in order to create those different CI/CDs. And with the designer, we can later extract or we can import the YAML configuration files. So for me, to make things simple, I'll go to use the classic editor in order to have the visual representation of the tasks. Here, for my pipeline, it needs to get the source code for my application. My app is available on GitHub. For that, I'll select here GitHub. Then I need to authenticate myself to GitHub so that Azure DevOps could connect to my GitHub account and get notified in each time there is a new commit or a new pull request on my repository. Once I'm connected to my GitHub, now I need to choose which repository I want to use. Here, the repo I'm using is the Terraform demo. So I'll search for Terraform demo and I have it here, so I select it. Then here, continue with the master branch. Hit continue, and from here we have different templates available that we can choose for our projects. This includes .NET Desktop, Android, ASP.NET, building Maven applications for Java, Python, and many more. For Terraform applications or for Terraform configurations, we don't have one defined. We don't have a template for that. But what we can do, we can start with an empty job. And with empty job, it's for us to define what are the tasks that we want to run. So here from the CI pipeline, what I want to do is to just to pass the files to the CD pipeline, because those files are not they should not be compiled, so we won't do anything for them during the CI pipeline. Just we'll copy those or we'll upload those into the artifacts so that they will be available later from the CD pipeline, where from the CD I'll go to deploy those into my Azure subscription. So there is actually no much to be done during the CI pipeline. From here, I'll go to add new tasks. The first one is to copy the files. So I'll choose this task made by Microsoft Corp. So I'll add this. Then I'll add a second one to publish the files into the artifacts. So I look for publish. And this is it, publish build artifacts. I'll add it to my CD pipeline. So if we take a look at the publish artifact task, this one expects to get the files to be published available on the build.artifact staging directory. So I'll copy this one, and from the previous task to copy the files to, I'll tell it to copy the files to the build artifact staging directory. And here we can have a filter on the files we want to copy. Or actually here, this is the source folder and the target is my build artifact staging directory. But for the source folder, this should be the repository. So from here, if I copy or if I click on this button, I'll be able to see all the files available on my GitHub repository. And here I'll expand until I have my Terraform configuration files. I select this folder to tell it I want to copy files from this folder. And here I can filter over the content of this folder, because it contains not only Terraform files. So I'll tell it to take only the Terraform files. For that, I'll use the asterisk.tf. So this will copy only the TF files. So this is all for the CI pipeline. It will go to copy the files from, to copy the Terraform files from the repository to the drop folder and living inside my artifacts that will be available later for the CD pipeline. Now that we are ready, I'll go to save and queue to run this pipeline. And here note I'm using the agent hosted VS 2017, but we can use almost any one of those different agents. And here Azure DevOps gives me this link to view in real time the progress of running the CI pipeline. So here it tells me that it checked out the code source, it copied the files, then it published them into the artifact drop. And from the summary window, we can see this progress. So from here, and the artifacts published, we can see that now we have a drop folder. If we go to view the content of this drop folder, we can see now we have our two Terraform files, the main.tf and the variables.tf. So those be available from the CD pipeline. Great. Now let's go to create the CD pipeline. For that, I'll go to open a new window for the releases. And from here, I'll go to say I want to create a new pipeline. We can choose one of the available templates, but again, we don't have a template for dedicated for Terraform, but again, we can start with an empty job. That's what I'm gonna do here. I'll start with an empty job, and here I'll go to select an artifact. So I'll click on that, and here we have the different options to get the artifact from. So we can get the artifacts from Azure Container Registry, from Docker Hub, from Jenkins, from GitHub, and from TeamCity, Azure Repo, and many more. Here I get my repo, okay, from the previous from the build of this project. So this project is selected by default. Now I can, if I have multiple build pipelines defined in this project, I can select one of them. Here I have only one, so I select the one I have already created earlier. I click add, so that now this artifact will contain my Terraform files. Those will be used from the stage 1. So from here, if I click here, I can now start to configure my release pipeline. What I'm going to do here is that I'll start by adding new jobs or new tasks, and here I look for a task for Terraform. I have this task right here. At first time, maybe you don't see that task available here, but you will see on the marketplace that there is lots of extensions that enable you to work with Terraform in Azure DevOps. I chose one of them here, which is the first one that appears, made by Peter Grunevigen. So I have installed it by clicking this button. I have it already installed, so it tells me here it is already installed. Once it's installed, I can see the available tasks coming from this this project. I can see them available right here. So from here, I'll go to click add to my pipeline. Some settings need attention. Why is that? Because it needs to get some configurations done. So first of all, here I need the Terraform template path, from where to get the Terraform files. I select those buttons, and from here I'll be able to access the artifacts folder, where I have my drop folder that contains the 2 Terraform files, the main and the variables.tf. I select the drop, and then for the Terraform arguments, if we expand this, we can see in the information it tells us that this could be the Terraform plan, apply, validate, etc. Those are the Terraform commands that we can use. First of all, I start with Terraform init, because that's the first command that we need to run in order for Terraform to set up all the configuration it needs in order to run this configuration in Azure. After that, here I go to say install Terraform. So I'll check this button. We have also some other options. So here I'll tell you to install the latest Terraform version. Otherwise, you can specify which specific version you want to use. And we have another option for using Azure Service Principal endpoint. This is useful if you want to save the IDs or save the state of your configuration, so that you can come in later and change the initial configuration. So you will have all the files that will be created by Terraform, like the TF state and the modules used. They will be saved into into an Azure subscription or into Azure storage. So you can configure that if you want to do so. And because we want to connect, or because we want to deploy into Azure, so we need to connect through using an Azure subscription by using the service principal. So here I tell it I want to connect to the Azure Resource Manager, and then I select one of my available Azure resources that I'm using in my Azure DevOps account. So here I have all my accounts. I'll go to choose the one I want to use for this demo. Then I click authorize, so that Azure DevOps could connect could authorize to Azure to my Azure subscription to get the configuration it needs, and to also be able to use the AZ command in order to deploy and to authenticate Azure DevOps. Once that's done, now we have the task successfully configured to connect to my Azure subscription and to run the command Terraform init. After the command Terraform init, maybe you want to run the command Terraform plan in order to be able to see all the configuration that will be applied to my Azure subscription. I can go to add a new task, but here I'll go to clone this one as it have all the configuration needed for it. So right click, then here I go to say clone tasks, and then I'll go to configure the second one. So instead of calling it init copy, I'll call it Terraform plan, and I'll change the command that should be used to be the command Terraform plan, and nothing to be changed here. I'll keep the other configuration that were inherited from the first one. So with this command, we'll run Terraform plan to give me a list of all the changes that it's gonna make to my Azure subscription. In addition to this, now I'll go to clone Terraform plan to run now the Terraform apply. With Terraform apply, I run the command apply, and again I'll be using the same configuration to get the drop files that contains the Terraform files and so on. But here with Terraform apply, when we run this in the command line, it will see the configuration that it will make, but it will ask for validation. So we need to tell it, yes, we want to create this validation. We need to type that by hand, but here we have an option to tell it to skip that question and proceed to applying the configuration without asking for permission. That could be done by adding the flag auto approve. So with auto approve, it will skip the question for validating the applying the changes. So this is all the configuration for the CD pipeline in order to deploy to Azure. Terraform init, plan, and apply. Let's save this configuration, okay, and let's try to run it. For that, I'll go to release and click create a release. Accept this, click create. Then from this link, I'll be able to see the progress of running this CD pipeline in real time. If I click to logs, so here it did run the Terraform init in order to download the Terraform providers that are needed in order to run Terraform apply. Then here it did also install Terraform, the v11.13 here, and it did successfully initialize the configuration. Then the next task, it is running the Terraform plan, where here it will give me an overview of the changes that will be added. So here it will create those different resources, the app service with this default configuration. Then it will create the service plan, the resource group, the SQL Server database, then the SQL Server instance with this configuration. So at the end, I'll have 5 resources to be created, 0 to be changed, and 0 to be destroyed. And once all is done, here we can see that it did run Terraform init, plan, and apply. And if we take a look at the console output of the apply, we can see that here we did created the resource group, the app service, the SQL Server instance, and so on. So it did created all the required 5 changes. We can check if this was really done successfully. Now if I go to my Azure subscription, now I go to resource groups and go here to where I have Terraform resource group. So it did created the resource group, and in addition to that, it did also created the different resources that I wanted to do. like the database, the SQL Server, the app service plan, and so on. And for the app service, for example, if I expand this, then I go to configuration, I'll be able to see that it did created the environment variables for the stem key, and it also created the connection string that I wanted it to create. So this is part of the configuration that Terraform could apply to the resources. It did not only create the resources, but it could also configure them by adding key values and applying any configuration for those. So this was it on how to create CI/CD pipelines to deploy a Terraform configuration into Azure subscription. I hope this video helped you, and thank you.